Since I finished all the official Indiana Jones novels, I've been delving into fan fiction, which so far has been good. I only read two, The Smoking Mirror by the German author Robert Anderson, and The Sorcererman from Mars, which was kind of an adaptation of the unused script for what eventually became Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was also a fun little book. But now I've been recommended this one, Indiana Jones and the Gypsy's Kiss. This one is kind of famous in the indie fan community, I guess. So I've heard. So apparently this was released in like 2004, or maybe a little bit earlier. It was released in chapters on some indie fan websites. I don't know anything about this other than what the author wrote in a little introduction that's at the beginning of his fanfic, which you can find on just fanfic.org. So in that note, which is from 2017, he said he wrote it that way for a fan website, and eventually he wrote himself into a corner, or something, because we will get to it, but I can definitely see that. I'm not gonna delve into the story too much, it's just the basics. So, a guy called Richard Melbury has been kidnapped. He's a friend of Marcus Brody, and he's supposed to lead the Nazis to a place in Egypt. They are looking for, like, the sun tablets, they call them, which were created by a pharaoh who's learned something about harnessing the power of the sun or something. It's never really explained, which I will also get to when we get to the ending. But that guy has been kidnapped, and his assistant is a gypsy woman called Vadoma, and shit happens, and she and Indy team up, and they have to flee the country. They have to flee England, because now Indy is hunted by Scotland Yard, and they travel through Europe, on the search for this guy, Melbury. So it sounds like a classic and decent setup, which it is. The beginning of the book is fine. It's fun, it has a lot of good action sequence. Most of the book is following Indy and Vadoma traveling through Europe. They go through Nazi Germany even, which is fun stuff. It becomes kind of boring eventually in the middle. And even early on, there's parts where it's just dragging a little bit. And then the problem I have is just the ending. So, it is a thing I noticed because I read all of these Indiana Jones books, the English ones and the German exclusive ones, in relatively quick succession. And all of the Indiana Jones stories have very rushed feeling endings, which it kind of makes sense because Indy is supposed to be this pulp, serial action type of stuff where it's like he's not gonna spend like 30 minutes in an epilogue after the main adventure is done. It's like the main quest just happened, everything is wrapped up, and then we cut to credits, it's done. I get that. But in this book, it doesn't wrap up. Like, it doesn't feel that way. And there's just two problems I have here. Okay, first off, there is no main antagonist. Yeah, sure, it's the Nazis, just as a whole, and this group that has kidnapped Richard Melbury. And they use him to find these artifacts, which are in Egypt. And then the main story is just Indy and his lady friend, the gypsy woman, finding their way to Egypt through Europe, which is fun stuff, like I said. But there is no main antagonist. But then the author tries to introduce two of them at the end. Because within the last, 10 chapters, he suddenly introduces, a rival archaeologist from Russia. Like, some lady and her companions who are after these artifacts now. And then suddenly in the last 5 chapters, the main, the Nazi group that has kidnapped Richard Melbury, suddenly the leader becomes a character and he tries to do a thing there and it doesn't work. It's just way too late in the game. And then the end itself. They find this tomb where these artifacts, the main MacGuffin that the book is supposed to be about, is hidden. And then there's an action scene, a battle ensues, and the thing collapses because of they threw grenades and stuff. Okay, that seems also typical, of an Indiana Jones adventure. But they never find the artifacts, the sun tablets, where something is written on that is apparently supernatural or whatever, which something about the power of the sun or whatever. They don't find them. We don't get any resolution to that. It's not even, mentioned, really. Because Indy and the gang, they just get out. The bad guys are defeated. There's a sad little moment that I'm not gonna spoil, and that's it. And the story is just over. And that is like the biggest thing, like, why? You could have done something cool here. Like, this doesn't have anything supernatural, really. Because it doesn't really have artifact stuff, like archaeology stuff. I mean, kind of, in like how they find the clues to go to that place. But the main MacGuffin is completely irrelevant. I can't even wrap my head around that. And it's not even done in like a twist-y kind of way where it turns out that the MacGuffin is like useless anyway or something. No, they just never find it down there in this tomb and it doesn't matter and no one talks about it again. And like, I get the Nazis won't have it now, whatever it is, because again, it's not really explained. I'm not happy with this ending at all. So if I were to give this a rating, a 4 out of 10, it's slightly below average. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. I would rank this just a bit higher than, like, speaking of the official novels, the fucking awful Martin Caidin Indiana Jones and the White Witch, which also wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as Sky Pirates, which is that is the worst Indiana Jones thing ever written. So would I recommend this book, this fanfic? I don't know, because I get that the journey itself is supposed to be the main thing, you know, and a bad ending doesn't necessarily ruin the experience of a book. But in this case, it did for me, so I can't recommend it. I thought the ending was just a complete wet fart. I'm sorry. It could have worked, but it just needed a little bit of rewriting and maybe 1 or 2 extra chapters. Because I was so close to the end with like 2 chapters left, and I was like, how is this gonna wrap up in this short amount of time? And I wasn't happy with it. It didn't work in my opinion, but yeah. I'm still glad I read it. And the author seems to be capable enough for a fanfic writer. So I just hope he improved. Because he has written another one, which is also kind of famous in the fan community, I guess. So eventually I will get to reading that one as well, and I hope it's better. But yeah, Gypsy's Kiss, so far, The Smoking Mirror is still the gold standard for Indiana Jones fanfiction. That one felt like one of the official novels. And The Gypsy's Kiss sadly doesn't.